So a good chunk of the time our mind is running around with all sorts of distorted conceptions, having direct perceivers of different sense objects, and then making up stories about them, what they mean, what people's intentions are, and so on. And in this way, we create a lot of trouble for ourselves and for others, because these stories are so often about what I want, what I need, what I like, what I don't like. And so when we notice ourselves getting into those kind of thoughts, and some of them are quite habitual, press the pause button and deliberately cultivate thoughts that are more benevolent and more accurate of what's going on in the situation. And especially when we see other living beings, to train the mind to see here are living beings stuck in cyclic existence, wanting happiness, but creating the cause of misery. And since I've had the incredible fortune of meeting the Dharma and learning methods to escape this situation, may I apply them and not only liberate myself, but be able to attain the highest awakening so that I can help other living beings out of their mess as well. So this is quite different than getting angry at people because they're depressed, because they don't do what we want, because their minds are thinking incorrectly. Instead of responding with anger, to respond with the wish to be of benefit, because we understand their deeper situation. And that nobody is really trying to do anything bad. It's just they're overpowered by their afflictions. And so in this way, generate the bodhicitta, practice the 6 perfections, and then act for the welfare of sentient beings. And so that's our purpose here this evening, to attain the highest awakening so we can be most effective in doing this. Okay, so we've been talking about the debate in the debate book and in the section about different kinds of phenomena. We started with the broad category of the selfless, and then which has 2 subdivisions, existent and non-existent. Then we focused on the existent, which has 2 subdivisions, functioning things and permanent phenomena. And then focusing on functioning things, we talked about its 3 divisions: matter or form, consciousness, and then abstract composites. And then in the last session, he was saying that, I think it's in the Gomang Dura, instead of those three divisions of functioning things, they put the 5 aggregates. Anyway, we were talking about abstract phenomena, or non-associated compositional factors, if you want to say it in the long way. Okay? And that there's 2 divisions of that: persons and abstract composites that are not persons. Okay? And so then, I was thinking again about the definition. He said, a person is a being who is imputed independence upon any of the 5 aggregates. And I don't know, that might be the thing according to the Sautrantika school, but in the Prasangika school, a person, the basis of designation of the person is not just any of the 5 aggregates, it's the 4 or 5, the collection of the 4 or 5 aggregates, and the person is imputed independence on them. Okay? And so we're often surprised to hear that cats and turkeys and stink bugs are considered persons. Okay, because whenever we talk about a person, it's a living being that's designated in dependence upon their aggregates. So that includes all the fish, all the insects, all the different kinds of living beings. Okay, it doesn't include dead people. We still call them dead people, but they aren't actually persons because they don't have the mental aggregates there. Okay. Okay, so then he starts, if we can all find the place, if persons are divided, there are 2, common beings and superiors. Okay, so superiors, I usually just say Arya using the Sanskrit term. I find that much easier. Okay, so if we're going to keep reading, he says, on first impression, it seems kind of shocking to note the Buddhists speak of common and superior beings. Why would that seem shocking? Yeah, because we usually think of superior as meaning entitled or, better than, but the superiors are better than common beings, but not in the way that we usually think. Okay, so here common beings and superiors are distinguished by their level of realization. Okay, so not by their political power, not by the kind of house they live in or the kind of job they have. Okay, a superior is one who has direct perception of emptiness or selflessness, which is accomplished as an effect of sustained contemplation and meditation. A common being has not. So that's a pretty big difference. Okay, somebody who's seen reality directly, with the union of serenity and insight, and somebody who hasn't. Okay. Thus, one is a common or superior, not by birth, not by strength, not by wealth, not by fame, not by power, and not by authority, but by a measure of internal development. Of course, knowing who is superior and who is not is challenging. You would know the truth of it for yourself, but in regards to others, it would be an article of belief. So they say when you're an Arya, you know your own level of realizations, and you can tell the level of realizations of people who are equal or lower than you, but not of people who are higher than us. Now, of course, then you get people who think that they're Aryas when they're not. And His Holiness tells the story, which I always find quite amusing, of some Westerner who came to him and said, I think I've attained the path of seeing, direct perception of emptiness, because I had a dream with 100 Buddhas in it. And that's one of the characteristics of somebody who, who was an Arya. And His Holiness said, well, actually, it's, that person's been able to see 100 Buddhas, not just dream of them. And they also have a whole bunch of other characteristics, okay? Not just that. So if you have all those other characteristics, then maybe you're an Arya. But if you don't, yeah, I think the guy was pretty disappointed to find out that he wasn't an Arya. Okay. So this, I think, it really shows first why it's important to study, so that you know the actual characteristics of the path and different stages of the path. And two, why you practice under the guidance of a qualified teacher, so that you check your experiences with your teacher instead of, thinking you've attained things that you haven't attained. So the Sanskrit name for superiors is Aryan, after the ancient invaders who arrived on the Indian subcontinent by at least 1800 BCE, more than 1200 years before the time of the Buddha. The imprint of the ancient Aryans on Indian culture is vast, but cultural sharing is shown by more than related words. Okay, so there's lots of words that the Aryans gave to Hindi and the different languages there. Here, Buddhists take the historical, quote, superiority of the Aryans and turn it on its head. Rather than being superior by the power of many soldiers and horses and control of chariot technology. Wow. Don't you want to have control of chariot technology? Yeah. I guess they used to have the kind of military parades like, Trump wanted in D.C. that would cost, $9 million? Yeah, but they had chariots and horses and elephants instead. But it's amazing that people have this wish to show off their potential for physical violence. Yeah? Isn't that amazing? That is seen in society as a sign of strength, that you have more potential for physical violence than somebody else. I've never really understood that. How is that a sign of strength? How is that a sign of power? Because for me, using violence to solve a problem is not a valid technique to solve a problem. Because it doesn't solve problems. It just creates pain and suffering and more problems. So it's really kind of amazing to me how, so few people really seem to question that. Everybody will say, we don't want war, but very few people will say, war is not a satisfactory method for solving conflict. Or war is not a method that works to solve conflict. People don't say that. But it doesn't solve conflict. Okay, so rather than being superior by the power of many soldiers and horses and control of chariot technology, one is a superior by a measure of internal development. I believe the cap actually it's a big hat. You've seen it? The Galupas wear it, a yellow hat here with the threads that stick up, like that. the cap with a comb of many threads worn by the Tibetan monks is modeled after the headwear of Aryan soldiers, just as the familiar bristled helmet of the Roman soldier. Interesting. Yeah. Again, rather than being a threatening display, the monks see the symbol this way, as explained by Geshe Rabten. The thousands of threads streaming out from the top of the hat represent the full development of wisdom, compassion, and power, the attainment of Buddhahood. They also serve to remind us of the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon. Because these are symbols of the ultimate refuge to which we entrust ourselves, they are worn on the highest part of the body, the top of the head. So our ultimate refuge is the Buddha. Of course, nowadays, I wonder how many people think of that when they put the yellow hats on, or if people just think, I'm important, I get to wear a yellow hat. Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's awfully nice seeing it on those geshe-mas, I must say.
Yeah, it was very nice. Okay, I'm sure some people bristled. Okay, so common beings. So the Treasury of Knowledge, which was written by Vasubandhu, okay, says those who have not attained a superior path are common beings. So common beings are of 6 types, each having the basis of a migrator in cyclic existence. Sentient beings are called migrators because, for the most part, they are constantly moving and traveling within cyclic existence. So we call migrators people who migrate for work. You know, we have migrant workers in this country. Europe was overwhelmed by migrators. Yeah, U.S. is building a wall and making many policies to keep migrators out. But basically, we're all migrators, okay? Because we're moving around in samsara. We go up, we go down. There's no stability at all. So the 6 types of common beings having the basis of a migrator are common beings having the basis of a hell being, common beings having the basis of a hungry ghost, common beings having the basis of an animal, common beings having the basis of a human, of a demigod, and of a god. Okay? So those are all common beings. Okay. Now here, those are actually 6 classes of beings. Sometimes we call them 6 realms, but Geshe-la pointed out to me the word is not realms. It's 6 classes of beings, and there's 3 realms: desire realm, form realm, and formless realm. Okay. Among the 6 classes of beings, the class of beings that are gods have beings, gods of the desire realm, of the form realm, and of the formless realm, whereas the other 5 beings are all the other 5 classes of beings are all desire realm beings. Okay, so 3 realms, 6 classes. These persons are qualified as common beings having the basis of a migrator for the sake of distinguishing them from superiors having the basis of a migrator. Since superiors and common beings are differentiated not by body type, but by qualities of mind, beings having the basis of migrators are of both types. Okay, in other words, common beings and Aryas. According to Ladi Rinpoche, there are probably no superiors having the basis of any of the 3 lower types of migrators, so beings of the 3 lower classes, okay? But there are cases of superiors having the basis of a human, demigod, or god. So, for example, when we look at the Sravaka path, you know, the stages of practice, There you have the stream enter, the once returner, the non-returner, and the arhat. And these all can be with the basis of a human, not a demigod, but a human or a god, okay? And of different kinds of gods too. Okay, these are practitioners who, although they have attained a superior's path, have not attained liberation and still take rebirth in cyclic existence as a person having the basis of a migrator. There are superiors who intentionally take rebirth, as for instance an animal, in order to be able to help others. Still, this is not a case of a superior having the basis of an animal, because the superior is merely assuming that appearance and is not powerlessly reborn as an animal due to the effects of polluted actions. Okay, so when a bodhisattva or a Buddha is manifesting as a being in samsara, they are not a being in samsara, and they are not a common being with the basis of a migrator. They're an emanation. Superiors. A superior, sometimes called a worthy one or a noble. And I think that the reason I use Arya is because noble is confusing and superior is confusing, because if you say the Four Noble Truths and the first one is suffering, what is noble about suffering? Okay, so it's actually the four truths of Aryas. In other words, Aryas see these four things as true. They don't see them as false, whereas we aren't even aware of them, or we, see them as false or something like that. Okay? So finding good translation terms is difficult. So I've just called them the four truths now. Yeah, it seems to work, and it's not as confusing as saying Four Noble Truths. Yeah, and similarly, the Noble Eightfold Path, those are 8 virtuous qualities, but the word noble, again, is confusing. We usually think of, royalty and somebody who's born with privilege, something like that, whereas, it really means somebody who has, direct realization of emptiness. So superior is a little bit better, I think, as translation, but I just prefer Arya, easier. Fewer syllables, and you know me. Fewer syllables. Okay. So an Arya may or may not be a liberated person. Okay. So some Aryas are still are not liberated beings. Some are still in samsara, and some are liberated, such as the Arhats and the Buddha and the pure Bhumi Bodhisattvas, pure ground Bodhisattvas of the 8th, 9th, 10th Bhumis, and the Buddhas. Okay, rather, a person becomes a superior upon having a direct perception of selflessness, and at the point when this first happens, the person is still on the path. So it's not that you realize emptiness and all your afflictions vanish instantaneously. Wouldn't that be nice? Sometimes we have that idea. You get you see reality and you expect, now everything's going to all be okay. Yeah, but not like that. There is no line that cannot be crossed between common beings and superiors. As the Buddhists tell it, all superiors were formerly common beings wandering in the round of rebirth. What's more, it is within everyone's capacity to become a superior. Remember Lhati Rinpoche's advice: there is no phenomenon that cannot be understood. There is no doctrine that, if studied well, cannot be learned. And there is no person who, if he or she studies well, cannot become wise. Okay? Very important. Maybe we should put that one on our mirrors in the bathroom too, so that when you look in the mirror and go, oh God, look at me, what a dum-dum. You see those words coming back at you. Yeah. An example of a superior is the Buddha or a higher ground bodhisattva, but also stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, and arhats. Okay, now non-associated compositional factors that are not persons. Okay, other than persons, the remaining of abstract composites are those that are not persons. Just as with all abstract composites, these are impermanent things that are neither matter nor consciousness. That's why they're called non-associated. Okay? Included here is, for instance, any measure of time, which we all know is impermanent. Thus, an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year, and so forth, all times are non-associated compositional factors. They're abstract composites that are not persons. Also, such things as numbers and order are abstract composites. Number is designated to a condition of measure. Order is designated to a serial state of former and latter, higher and low, and so forth. Order as a mere serial state is an object of apprehension of any of the six consciousnesses and is something that is produced, abides for some time, and disintegrates. Okay, it seems to me that with all these things, the abstract composites, all of them, including persons, you have to perceive something else in order to know that abstract composite is present. Okay, so we can't see order directly, but what we see is our duckies lined up. Okay, so you got to see the duckies to see the order. And for the person, that's when you can see, have contact with any of the five aggregates and identify the person. Okay, so I thought to just go through some of these abstract factors. They usually they skip this kind of, but I thought it's interesting to read it, okay? So from Meditation on Emptiness. Okay. So here he says, a person is an abstract composite because of being designated independence upon a collection of form and consciousness. So right there, the five aggregates. Since a person is neither form nor consciousness, but impermanent, it can only be an instant of the remaining category of impermanent phenomena, abstract composite. Okay, non-person abstract composites are of 23 types, according to Prasangikas. These 23 are called designations to states. Okay, so already you can see that somehow these things are imputed to something else. You have to perceive something else to know these. So acquisition is designated to a state of the increase and decrease of virtues and so forth, which are of two types: finding acquisition, which is a new attainment of such increase or decrease, and possessive acquisition, which is the retention of it. So if I remember correctly, Venerable Sangye Khaja, please correct me in any of these things. Acquisition is the way that some of the Vaibhasika schools talk about how karma is created in one life and the result experienced in another life. So acquisition has to do with that. Absorption without discrimination is designated to a state involving a lack of coarse feelings and discriminations associated with the third concentration and below. So it's pretty much the same as if we go lower, one having no discrimination. It's another one of those, of the abstract composites, which is designated to the state of a person born among the gods in the condition of being without coarse feelings and discriminations. Okay, so those two pretty much the same. And so when we meditate on precious human life, when we talk about the perceptionless gods, it refers to these beings. They're in that state. So it's in the fourth dhyana, and they're only aware of birth and death, and they're spaced out. They don't really have much consciousness aside from that. So not very conducive for practicing the Dharma. Okay, so absorption without discrimination is designated to that state. Yeah, it's in the fourth dhyana. It is produced on the fourth in dependence on the fourth concentration by common beings only. Okay, so no Aryas. Yeah, because an Arya wouldn't want to hang out in a state of being spaced out like that. Okay, then there's another one called absorption of cessation, and that is designated to a state achieved only by superiors in which there is a lack of coarse feelings and discriminations associated with the peak of cyclic existence, which is the highest formless level and below. Okay, so that's an absorption. It sounds similar to the other one because both lack coarse feelings and discriminations, but the first one was lacking the coarse feelings and discriminations of the third dhyana and below, and the one by superiors is of the peak of cyclic existence and below. And so it says that it's a state where consciousness doesn't function because something temporarily is preventing it. And it's difficult to say, why would an Arya abide in that kind of state? Yeah. And I remember reading one thing, because apparently Mahakassapa would go into that kind of state before he would go on alms round, because giving to somebody who had that kind of meditative ability was so much more merit than giving to a regular Arya. So he did that for the sake of his benefactors. So it's something, to an exercise of your meditation dexterity, but it's not going to be a state really to meditate on emptiness or do something really useful. Yeah.
The different schools explain that one differently according to the
Yeah.
meditation.
According to what?
I think this is according to the
Well, Jeffrey says that his thing in here is according to Prasangika, but it seems like a number of the things are actually from Vaibhasika. I don't know. Okay, because I remember asking him about this, and actually he says something a little bit later. So life faculty or life is another one of these. So when we do Tara, our white Tara practice, and you hook back all the life force that has been stolen or dispersed, this is what you're hooking back. Don't ask me what it is, okay? It's designated, well, here it is. It's designated to the state of living. It is the basis of consciousness and warmth. Okay, next one is similarity of type. and that's designated to the state or condition of likeness. Birth or production, aging, duration, and impermanence are designated to states of the characteristics of things. Okay, so arising, abiding, disintegrating, and impermanence in general. Groups of stems, groups of words, and groups of letters are designated to various states of verbal conventions. So it raises the question, what actually is a word? Yeah, is a word a sound? Is a word a meaning? Is a word something on paper? Yeah. Stems are bare names without case endings and so forth, whereas words are stems with case endings. Of course, in English, we don't have case endings. State of an ordinary being is designated to one who has not attained the qualities of superiors. And then here Jeffrey has, the Vaibhasikas substitute non-acquisition for this category and do not assert the remaining 9, limiting their presentation of abstract composites to 14. Okay. Then to continue with the Prasangika ones, there's 9 more. Continuity is designated to the non-interrupted state of a continuum of causes and effects. Distinction is of 3 types. Distinction of the particular and the general. Okay, distinction of virtues and negativities and pains and pleasures, and distinctions of causes and effects. Relatedness is of 3 types. First one is means, which is a collection of, for instance, an artisan's tools. Aggregation, which is a collection of causes, but specifically their reliance on each other within the collection. And suitability, which is a thing's having its own function. Okay, so you can really see these are, abstract composites. They're impermanent phenomena, but you really can't see them with your eyes. You have to see something else and then impute them or designate them. Rapidity is designated to a condition of the arising of effects immediately after their causes and to the speed caused by persons, magical emanations, and so forth. Okay, so that's when you get pulled over by a cop for speeding, this is that one. Okay? Order is designated to a serial state of former and latter, high and low, and so forth. Time is designated to states of the past, present, and future. Area is designated to the composite of a place and the persons therein. Number is designated to a condition of measure. Collection is designated to the state of a complete collection of causes, and specifically to that completeness. So those are all the other non-person abstract composites. Okay, if you want to look at the list yourself, it starts on Meditation and Emptiness, page 268, and goes to 271. Yeah?
I was thinking about places, for example, the United States.
I thought of places like United States or Seattle or Sravasti Abbey. Do you think they are, they would be come under
areas.
area? And then also time and seasons, for example, winter, autumn. So they would be examples.
They would be examples of time. But then I think of things, what about democracy? Okay, where in our classification of phenomena does democracy? It's not a permanent phenomena. Okay, it's not form, it's not consciousness. It must be an abstract composite. It's not a person. It must be a non-person abstract composite. But I don't see it fitting in any of the ones given here. So there must be more.
Collection, aggregation collection.
Is it no, democracy isn't a collection. It's not a collection. It's
A collection of causes.
a disorder. Democracy is disorder.
Could be a permanent phenomenon.
No, it's not a permanent phenomena. Democracy changes. Okay. But it's, yeah.
It says order is designated to a serial state of former and later, high and low, and so forth. So perhaps it could be
Stick it in and so forth.
and so forth.
When in doubt. But I think some of the others may have and so forth too. Yeah. But what's the basis of designation of democracy? Yeah. What's the basis of designation? Yeah, when you really sit and think about it, what?
Society.
What's the basis of designation? It's not just people, it's people.
Who choose to live under a certain set of civil forms.
Yeah, people who, yeah, it's a structure of government.
Communism,
Yeah, So-
many other styles of
things. Yeah, all of those, forms of maybe we need to add political systems as another non-associated, another non-abstract composite.
All under the same kind of characteristic as that.
Well,
Like
I don't know that
a consensus. We all came to a consensus. That would be an abstract composite, right?
Yeah. That would, is that a collection? Would it fall under collection? I don't know. Yeah, but it seems to me, when you think about it, there's a lot of things that you would have, impermanent things that you would have difficulty fitting into this structure.
About things like Sravasti Abbey. Like, what is Sravasti Abbey? Is it the land? Is it the people? Is it the buildings?
Yeah.
What is Sravasti Abbey?
Yeah, exactly.
that would be an area. Because it's
Yeah.
a piece of land,
In
buildings,
And people, in one way, it's an area, but in another way, it's not an area, is it?
it's the same as cities and countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cities and countries, you get much more a feeling of the physicality of them.
But if there was no people there, you wouldn't call them a city. It's empty.
You said an abandoned city. Then an abandoned city isn't a city, is it? Yeah, a ghost town. Yeah?
If everybody in Chicago moved somewhere else together, they wouldn't still call it Chicago. But if we all moved to a different location, it would still be Sravasti Abbey. The same as Sarah J. moved.
Huh.
It's not the buildings. It's an institution of being able to
Yeah.
practice and spread the Dharma
Yeah.
in a certain way.
Yeah, so it's an institution, and an institution is different than a city. Yeah, when you start looking at these things in more depth, you just get a whole bunch of questions, don't you? Yeah. Also, what's an election? Yeah. What's a Supreme Court nomination besides a mess? Yeah. Big mess. So, yeah, so it's interesting to, what are these things? Because we use all these words and we kind of understand each other more or less. But when we really ask ourselves, what is the basis of designation of some of these words we use, it's really difficult to say, isn't it? Like what is marriage? We won't give any commentary on that, but but what is that? So yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the text here. Also included here as a non-associated, as an abstract composite that is not a person, is functioning thing itself, as well as all the phenomena mutually inclusive with it, such as impermanent phenomena, it should be, that which is able to perform a function, and so on. It is not the case that whatever is a functioning thing is necessarily an abstract composite, but functioning thing itself is an abstract composite because of its being an impermanent phenomena that is neither matter nor consciousness. So is that clear? If you just look at functioning thing as its own entity, it's not matter, it's not consciousness, But if you ask what is a functioning phenomena, then you could put matter and consciousness and all sorts of other things in that category. You may recall the statement that each of the three divisions of functioning thing is mutually exclusive with the other two. Okay? So form and consciousness are mutually exclusive. Non-associated compositional factors are mutually exclusive with those two, and so on. Then it may occur to you that if functioning thing itself is an abstract composite, and all forms, for instance, are functioning things, then how can they be mutually exclusive? It is because there is no form that is an abstract composite, so there is nothing that is both. Okay, and because we're looking at abstract composite as a generality here. Yeah. Although both matter and consciousness are functioning things, functioning thing as such is neither of them. Okay? Since functioning thing is an impermanent phenomena and is not matter or consciousness, it must be a non-associated, an abstract composite. Unlike color, which, although a color, is neither a primary color nor a secondary color. Functioning thing is itself to be found among its divisions. Oh, okay, yeah. So color is a color, but it's not one of the divisions of color, a primary color, a secondary color. Functioning thing is a division of functioning thing. It's an abstract composite. Okay, then he has a reflection. Okay, so remember, this material is one way of approaching vipassana, or insight meditation. A version of this categorization of phenomena is included as a standard part of the meditative tradition known as vipassana. In either version, the material is intended to introduce students to the same sort of introspection and mindfulness. Such awareness is basic to Buddhism. Please pay attention to this scheme of categorizing phenomena. Just notice things as they come to mind or as you encounter them with your senses, in what William James calls one great blooming, buzzing confusion. Sounds like the White House. Vipassana is a way of sorting out this confusion. As Mahasi Sayadaw said, Thus, when seeing a visible object with the eye, the meditator knows how to distinguish each factor involved. Okay, the eye, sense faculty is one. The visual object is another. The action of seeing is another. And then knowing it, cognizing it, is another. The same manner applies in the case of other sense functions. Okay, so what we're getting at here is all these categories, which is a function of Abhidharma literature. They're made not just so you have tons of things to remember and get confused about, but as a way of helping us fine-tune our awareness of our environment. And I think by doing that fine-tuning, and especially regarding sense objects, it prevents our mind from making stories about the sense objects, because we're too busy trying to fit them into these Abhidharma categories to make stories about them. Okay. However, it's also very interesting when you notice your mind making stories to stop and say, what kind of cognizer is this? Is this a direct perceiver? Is this a conceptual cognizer? Is it a reliable cognizer? Is it appearing but not ascertained? So to really evaluate the states of our consciousness as well is very helpful in that way. Yeah. So this whole way, it keeps our mind occupied on seeing how many different things need to come together for anything to happen. Yeah. Because we take our perceptions for granted. We open our eyes and there are all these gazillions of things, and it just seems all very natural. But when you really think about it, you have to have all these colors, all these shapes, and the sense organs, and then we have our previous familiarity with things and how we impute them, and then we can begin to see all the stories we put on top of them based on previous experiences, and then how we go off into the future thinking what they're going to be like, and how this creates a whole lot of confusion in our lives. Yeah, but also just for plain old seeing things in our environment, how many things have to come together to make it happen? Yeah. Like I was saying, after I had my cataracts out, I started asking, when I had cataracts, did I have a reliable cognizer? Yeah. When things appear a little bit yellowish, but you don't notice it because that's the way everything looks. Yeah, you think you have a cognizer. When most of us wear glasses. When we're not wearing our glasses, do we have reliable cognizers? Well, maybe not to the details of an object, but we can still tell, yellow from pink. And hopefully we can tell a grapefruit from a cat. Sometimes our eyes are really bad and, we can't tell the difference between different things. Okay. But it's interesting, when do you really have a reliable sense cognizer? Yeah. And it's very interesting to go, also when you begin to lose your hearing and, is that a reliable cognizer of mumbling? Yeah, because people are mumbling. That's it. They're not speaking, they're mumbling. So is that a reliable cognizer of mumbling? At what point, with whose ears does it become a reliable cognizer of speaking intelligently versus mumbling? Yeah. And do you have to measure your ears by some system, to get to that exact level of frequency of this and that to become a reliable cognizer. And what happens when we're sure we heard somebody say something and they deny saying it?
I was thinking that when our hearing starts decreasing, and if we still have our eyes, our ability to read lips increases.
Yes.
So we start pulling in these other senses to help
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So is that hearing or is that seeing? You're seeing colors and shapes, but you know what the words are. Okay. In the same way, I am inviting you to pay attention. Just notice things as they come along. Now I am smelling a pleasant natural odor. Okay. I have to laugh. Venerable Pende isn't here, but yesterday I walked into, it's too bad she's not here, we'll have to tell her. I walked into my cabin and it just smelled like peppermint in and out. And I'm going, what's going on? And she came in and it smells like peppermint. I didn't, like, I don't know. And then later, after you left, I looked under the sink, and you know how we had this peppermint spray for all the bugs? Yeah. So I had put it under my sink, and she had taken it out thinking that it was vinegar water to use for cleaning the counter and cleaning the toilet and everything. Yeah. So everything in the bathroom smelled like peppermint. Yeah. So, I mean, it smelled better than vinegar. Yeah. But,
And probably cleans as well.
yeah. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, it might clean just as well.
It cleaned so much because there was no vinegar.
Okay, so now I am smelling a pleasant natural odor. So that would be smelling the vinegar, right? Now, but at what point does it become too strong and it becomes an unpleasant natural odor? And that's going to differ from person to person, isn't it? Yeah. Or this is a sound caused by elements conjoined with consciousness. So, shut up. You're making too much noise. I'm trying to meditate. Okay, this is a secondary color. This is a tangible object smoothness which has arisen from the elements. So is this smooth? Would you call the top of the table smooth? Would you call the top of a book, a hardcover book, smooth? It's not smooth compared to the table, but it is smooth compared to a hairbrush. Or sandpaper. Yeah. Just practice putting mental labels on things. You will learn the system better by playing this game. Okay, you will wonder whether or not something is included here or included there, and that is the beginning of debate. The purpose of this exercise is not to test the system and discover whether or not it is complete. So this is important, okay? It is an ancient system. Give it a break. Okay, some things may put you off, such as listing earth, fire, water, and wind as elements. Still, there is hardness, there is moistness, there is heat, there is movement. Although not included here, there is a division of animals into animals living in the depths of water and the depths under the soil, and animals scattered about the surface. It is interesting, but hardly compares to modern biology. Okay, so remember that the purpose of this reflection is to train your mind. It's not to figure out whether a snapdragon has consciousness and is a person or a plant, or whether a bacteria is a living being or an abstract composite. No, it would be a form. It would be matter. Yeah, is it matter or is it an abstract composite? Without regard to whether or not you are a Buddhist, whether or not you have any personal interest in any kind of spirituality, their system begins with observation for the sake of training the mind. The word vipassana means special insight, not great observer or one who is skillful in the system. Classify things as you will, just pay attention. Notice your own consciousness as you go through the day. Again, from Mahasi Sayadaw. For at that time, in each act of noticing, the meditator comes to know analytically the mental processes of noticing and those of thinking and reflecting, knowing them for him or herself through direct knowledge by his or her experience. Okay. There will be more information later in this book on the different types of consciousnesses that will support this sort of introspection. For now, please focus on labeling external appearances for the sake of increasing mindfulness and inquiry. Analytical thinking begins with observation. Okay, so this is just a rudimentary technique to make us more observant and to focus the mind on something else besides this person doesn't like me because they, but just labeling things itself is not going to get you awakened. Okay, there has to be a wisdom component. Okay, so then the exercise, he says, do the mindfulness exercises suggested in the reflection above. Just put labels on things as they pass. Jerk, idiot. Precious. Suffering sentient being. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Ask yourself such questions. And really, to train ourselves when we see people to say suffering sentient beings instead of jerk or idiot or, elitist or liar or, just suffering sentient being again and again. So just put labels on things as they pass. Ask yourself such questions as, is that voice I am hearing a sound associated with elements conjoined with consciousness or not? Okay, just pay attention. So when you hear somebody walk across the carpet, is that a sound associated with elements conjoined with consciousness? Are you sure? Because remember that we talked about the different kinds of sounds, and if the hand is hitting it versus if the stick is hitting it. So are the feet touching the carpet or are the shoes touching the carpet? It could be associated with sound or not associated with sound. Consciousness. Yeah. Then, to the extent you can, notice the noticer. Okay. Do you think that consciousness is from a source separate from matter? So when you're noticing all these things, What is noticing it? Oh, my mind. What do you think your mind is? Yeah? Yeah. Is it your brain? Is it which part of the brain, frontal cortex or something that sees? Who's a brain specialist? You. Frontal cortex, that perceives sense objects? No. It does something else.
Well, it makes sense of what's coming
It
in.
makes sense. Okay.
You can't say one thing, so many things.
Yeah. But what, is your frontal cortex, what part of the mind is seeing the yellow?
Mind or brain?
Brain. Occipital lobe is seeing it. So is your occipital lobe seeing yellow?
Again, you can't say one thing.
Yeah. What's seeing the yellow?
Many things
Many things?
altogether. I mean, it's this sequence of events that bring about the understanding of yellow.
Uh-huh.
It's not one
So there's a whole process needed to perceive it, but what's the final thing that's perceiving it?
Consciousness.
Consciousness is.
Consciousness.
Yeah. But we say, I'm perceiving yellow. And the I, the person, is an abstract composite. It's not a consciousness. So are you perceiving it yellow, or is the consciousness perceiving yellow? Yeah. So that's what he's getting at.
Also, discrimination is in there.
Huh?
Discrimination is in there, and that's another different angle.
Yeah. But it's part of consciousness. Yeah. Part of the mental aggregates. Okay. So do you think that consciousness is from a source separate from matter? Or is it an effect of matter in that we have brains and nervous systems such as we do? So does matter create the consciousness? Is the noticer the consciousness or the person? Are they different? These are really good things, to look out for as we go through the day. Yeah. I remember when Lama Zopa was teaching walking meditation, because usually you're supposed to focus on your feet and lifting, pushing, placing, and so on. And his way of doing walking meditation is you walk and you think, why do I say I'm walking? Who is walking? Yeah. Who is walking? If I say I'm walking, why do I say I'm walking? Who's the I that's walking? Yeah. And then, where's the walking going on? We're still at that place. Where's the part where's the going over part? Okay? Yeah, I mean, we all got here from some other building, but where's the part that we went over to get here? Yeah. So these are all, you can make all of these things into mindfulness practices. And I was thinking that because I used to not really understand what koans were, but I think these kind of things, when you really focus on them, when you're walking and you really focus on where's the part that's being gone over, that becomes like a koan. If your mind gets fully immersed in it and you're walking and you're lifting your foot and it's like, where is the part being gone over? Yeah. or you're stirring the batter, where is the stirring happening? Yeah, is it happening in the has been stirred, in the yet to be stirred, in the being stirred? Where in the world is the being stirred? Yeah. So I think this is, how you can make it all, this is what I think Zen is doing, is taking these kinds of things and then, really focusing your mind on it and trying to figure it out. Yeah, we kind of go, I'm really not too sure where I'm going, but anyway, I need to get there, and then we're on to the next thing. But yeah, where actually are you walking? Karuna, where are you walking? You just came into the room. Yeah? Now you're walking. Where are you walking? Okay, questions or comments so far?
So I was thinking that when he said to just keep identifying and going over and over, that it stops the conceptual junk that is always going on in the mind. And so then we're kind of training ourselves to see the dependent arising of everything.
Yeah.
But when we're actually, like when you're saying, where am I going, or what is the gone over and all of that, oftentimes my mind just wants to say, well, there's not one thing, it's a dependent arising.
Yeah.
But that's not so helpful, is it? It's more that we take the time to actually really think deeply about it. Is that correct?
Right. Because otherwise it's a dependent arising, like, that just takes care of the whole thing. But what does it mean it's a dependent arising? Oh, there's all these different factors. Well, what are the different factors and how are they related? Yeah. Okay, now when she was just speaking in the microphone, was that a pleasant sound related with consciousness or a pleasant sound not related with consciousness?
Yes.
Hey, what are you saying?
It depends how close you were, whether we could hear it from her mouth or whether we were far away enough that we had to hear it through the speaker.
Yeah.
Or through the internet.
Yeah, through the internet.
So if you could
it's interesting. We're sitting in the same room, and then it becomes a sound, a pleasant sound not related to consciousness, because we're hearing it from the microphone. Does that feel comfortable to you? Or does that feel weird? I think it feels weird. Yeah. Yeah. On the other hand, there is a difference between hearing it from the vocal cords and hearing it through the mic. Okay, shall we go on to the next section, next chapter? Yeah.
Just to say, I found it very helpful to do this. I mean, years ago when we were doing the 4 establishments on mindfulness, I thought it was so silly to label the body in terms of elements, but it turned out to be really helpful. Just like, what's the skin? Earth? And it's the same as a watch. Like, what? I think that was described in Alan Wallace's, when we...
What? The skin is the same as a watch?
So as in, if you label the skin as earth element,
okay,
then the strap of a watch is also earth element. Then what makes them different?
Oh,
then
okay.
You're like,
Yeah.
And then you get into the, what's the air? How's the air inside different from the air outside? And yeah, so I found that quite helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, some people really get into the elements and, internal elements, external elements. some people. Okay, so chapter 11, we are moving along here. The paradigms for proving a comparison of phenomena. At this point, you understand from chapter 4, the comparison of phenomena, the ways that two different existent phenomena may compare. You also understand from chapter 6, the Buddhist syllogism, the process for forming a valid syllogism. The paradigms for proving a comparison of phenomena put these two skills together. These paradigms are like skeletons on which would be the flesh of the debates, or like outlines of a text. Thus, even though they are not complete, it is essential to put these in mind so that you see the patterns. With the paradigms in mind, everyone can foresee where the discussion will need to go. In this regard, the paradigms are like roadmaps. Okay, so when we get into that, you'll see it. Whether in our own personal reflection or in discussion with others, we all seek to discover the truth of the world. As the great American scientist and philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce said, "Every person is fully satisfied that there is such a thing as truth." I will not make a comment about certain people. Or he would not ask any question. According to the guidelines for the comparison of phenomena, we may begin by considering whether or not and in what ways things may be distinguished. Beyond that, we will have to verify our assessments by looking to see whether or not our positions may be supported. So we can say this is that, but we have to be able to have reasons for saying this is that. Okay? The pattern here follows the pattern set forth in the comparison of phenomena. 3P, 4P, P, I got a P, MX and MI. I don't know, there's got to be another way. There are 6 paradigms here, 2 each for 3P and 4P. And go P, and 1 each for the other 2. Recall that I am following the descriptions of these comparisons as set forth by Khenzo Yeshe Thupten. So that's a hint that not everybody does it this way. Okay? Here are the paradigms one by one, together with notes on what you have to do for each. Okay, so proving 3 possibilities. For both of the 3P paradigms, in order to prove that 2 things compare as 3 possibilities in either way, you will have to show that there is at least one subject X that is both a P and a Q. Okay, that's one thing you need to do. Prove that X is a P with a valid reason. And, next thing, prove that X is a Q with a valid reason. Okay. Second, actually, I think it's fourth, you will have to show which way the pervasion runs. Is it the case that every P is a Q, or is it the case that every Q is a P? So which way the pervasion goes. Whichever way it goes, you will then have to show, next thing, that there is at least one subject X that is one, but not the other, as you indicated in your claim about the way the pervasion runs. And then prove that X is the one with a valid reason, X is the one with a valid reason, and that X is not the other with a valid reason. Okay? So 3 possibilities, including neither. In this case, because it includes the possibility of something that is neither, in addition to the other requirements, you will have to posit some subject X that is neither a P nor a Q, neither a P nor a Q, and prove with a valid reason that X is not a P and that X is not a Q. Okay, this will be much more understandable when we have an example. So, an answer in debate, or a question, well, okay, there are three possibilities between P and Q. Okay, so let's take the example of a nun and a monastic. Okay, somebody says there are three possibilities between P, which is a nun, and Q, which is a monastic. So something that is both a P and a Q is the subject X. So put our example into that. Yeah, no, say, so, okay, no, read exactly. Something that is both a...
Something that is both a nun and a monastic is the subject Venerable Chinny.
Okay, good. Then go through the next one.
The subject, Venerable Chinny, is a nun because she's ordained, because she's taken ordination.
Monastic ordination.
Chinny ordination.
Yeah.
And the subject, Venerable Chinny, is monastic because she's a nun. No.
You have to be more specific with the first one. She's a nun because...
She's female and she's taken ordination.
Yeah, she's female and she's taken ordination. Okay, and then...
And the subject, Venerable Chinny, is a monastic because she has taken full ordination.
Yeah. Okay. So that's proven that there's something that's both. Okay. Then, which way does the privation go? You want to continue? Okay.
Whatever is a nun is necessarily a monastic.
Uh-huh.
Oh, whatever is a...
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever is a nun is necessarily a monastic, but whatever is a monastic is not necessarily a nun. For example, the subject Venerable Losong is a monastic, but it's not a nun.
Okay.
The subject...
So that's your overall thing. Now you got to supply valid reasons for them. Okay.
The subject Venerable Losong is a monastic because of having taken full ordination in the Brahmagupa Dhamma. The subject Venerable Losong is not a nun because he's a monk. Because he's a monk.
Or because he's male.
Because he's a male.
Yeah. Not in all traditions. Some people use the word monk to include females.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that shows the privation. And then which way the privation goes. And then you have to show something that's neither.
Something that is neither a monastic nor a nun is the subject.
No, it's neither a nun nor a monastic. Your P's are nuns.
Oh, okay. Something that is... yeah, something that is neither a nun nor a monastic is the subject Mary Louise. The subject
Okay.
Mary Louise is not a nun because she's not a female monastic. And the subject Mary Louise is not a monastic because she hasn't taken monastic ordination.
Yeah. Okay. So you seeing how that works? Okay, so he says this and all the other paradigms laid out here are sterile specimens like butterflies pinned to a mat. Ugh. Do not think that the implied debates will have to follow these sterile patterns. Like butterflies, they are more marvelous when they have life and flow freely. Okay, do you want to do another round of that? Yeah, somebody else want to choose an example of something that's three possibilities with with something being neither? Oh, everybody's looking down now. Yeah. Okay. So it's your.
Going through the same thing again. The same one.
Yeah, but you got to choose a different example.
Cars and vehicles and Subarus.
Okay. Okay. So go through the.
Okay. Something that is both a vehicle and a Subaru is the subject, the Kennet, our Subaru.
Mm-hmm.
The subject, the Kennet, is a Subaru because of being manufactured by Subaru Corporation.
So car, P is your vehicle.
P is the vehicle, okay.
No, P.
No,
Actually, it's better if you do it with. If you're going to fill this outline, do P as the Subaru and Q as the vehicle.
yeah, that's what I was just doing.
Okay.
And then the subject, the Kennet, is a vehicle because of having four wheels and being able to transport people.
Yeah.
And to whatever is, whatever is a Subaru is necessarily a vehicle. But whatever is a vehicle is not necessarily a Subaru. For example, the subject Heraldina, which is our truck, is a vehicle, but not a Subaru. The subject Heraldina is a vehicle because of having four wheels and transporting things. The subject Heraldina is not a Subaru because of being made by the General Motors Corporation. And something that is neither a vehicle nor a Subaru is the subject the picnic table.
The what?
The picnic table.
Okay.
The subject, the picnic table, is not a Subaru because of not being made by or being in any way associated with the Subaru Corporation. And the subject, the picnic table, is not a vehicle because of not being able to transport things. And
Well, if you sit on top of a picnic table and somebody picks it up.
yeah, okay, that's not its function. I mean, we could go sledding with it, but we're not allowed.
Maybe can you be more specific about why it's not a vehicle?
Because of not having wheels or any, that doesn't really work either because
Rockets don't have wheels.
sleds too.
Are rockets vehicles?
Because of being a stationary object.
Yeah, or not having an engine.
Yeah, or not fulfilling the function, not being able to fulfill the function of a vehicle. I did once float on a picnic table upside down as a boat. Yeah. But that one would probably sink.
But it's interesting. I mean, a sled is a vehicle, a rocket ship is a vehicle, a boat.
Yeah, the bicycle doesn't have a motor.
Yeah, that's true. So what's the defining thing about a vehicle then?
propelling mechanism.
It has some kind of propelling mechanism. Yeah.
Not necessarily.
No? The sled couldn't be the human being propelling it?
Or gravity.
The person isn't part of the sled, so if you're saying
Yeah.
that the vehicle has a propelling mechanism, then the person's not part of the vehicle.
Okay. Somebody want to look up vehicle, see what the definition is?
A thing used for transporting people or goods, especially on land such as a car, truck, or cart.
Used for transporting people or goods. Well, a picnic table could be used to do that. Yeah. It's not a very good definition, is it?
What's a better one?
Yeah, you tell me.
It does have a fault because my Jolo bag could then be a vehicle because I transport goods with it.
Yeah.
If you're using the picnic table to transport goods, is it still a picnic table?
Yeah. Well, can it serve one object serve two purposes? Or is it inherently a picnic table, such that that basis of designation could never be given the name vehicle? Yeah. But you think about your Jola, something that is used to transport goods.
And if you leave it in the car, then there's a mice inside, a mouse inside, and then you've got a living being there.
Yeah.
It's a home.
It's a home, but it's also a vehicle. Some people live in their cars. Okay. Let me see what my computer says for vehicle. Oh, it's the same definition as yours. Yeah, we need a different dictionary. I'm sure they all have. Here, let's try this one. Mm-hmm. Vehicle, a means of carrying or transporting something. Okay. An agent of transmission, like a carrier. So a person could be a vehicle. Yeah. A medium through which something is expressed, achieved, or displayed. An investment vehicle. An inert medium, such as a syrup, in which a medicinally active agent is administered.
So the vehicle for cough syrup is sugar water.
But it's a vehicle. Oh,
It transports them, yes.
it's a medicinally active agent. Okay. Yeah. Any of various media acting usually as solvents, carriers, or binders for active ingredients or pigments.
I want to modify my comparison to automobile.
Okay.
We can move on.
But this is actually a good example because when you start debating things, we'll use a word and then, we won't use it exactly correctly. We'll think we are, but when you really push, is this that, then, you have to question it.
Yeah, and this particular thing has pretty marginal definition, and which shows that we mostly have learned that word in context.
Yeah. So don't use it in debate. Yeah. Okay, so let's stop here. And then we'll go on to 3 possibilities without neither. And then 4 possibilities. So read ahead and make some examples. Okay, for yourself. And you can try, use just objects, but it's also interesting to try it with some of the things you judge. Yeah. Like we did with the syllogisms or something, so-and-so is, is there, how many possibilities between a jerk and a human being? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then run it and see, how can you justify, what is your definition of jerk? We call lots of people jerks. But, how are we we have to show that somebody is a jerk. So what's the reason that we use to prove that somebody's a jerk? Yeah, could be very interesting. Yeah.
We'll find more erroneous syllogisms.
Yeah. Yeah, but it makes us really look at how we use words and how we categorize people.